what's up, guys? I just went over Alan's science fiction genre magazine, Infinity. Now, of course, the Darkside, my favorite magazine. I usually try. I don't get every issue, but I usually end up doing it. And man, the two-part Paul Naschy thing that he was teasing. Oh man, he put the pain in Spain. Very clever. Paul Naschy, El Hombre Lobo, right? With the, of course, the cover artist, I forgot his name, always doing, like, oh man, I'm getting nasty looks at the Barnes and Noble when I buy this. So, of course, this is a reference to the Beast and the Magic Sword, although you have a very Thai looking Japanese woman, apparently. So, and there's some other things in here, too. So, let's go over it. Rest in peace, Horst Janssen. Yeah, Captain Kronos, man. Passed away at 89. If you haven't seen that film, that 70s Hammer was great. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. It's just a damn shame they couldn't make a series of this like they had planned to. Real quick. Oh, hey, damn. This basically a little, kind of like a little sort of interview with this actress here, Tsai Chin. Daughter of a Peking opera star, right? Born in Shanghai, educated in British Hong Kong. She played in some genre, English-speaking genre films as the daughter of Fu Manchu, right? Christopher Lee. Oh no, no, yeah, enough. Listen, man, I like cultural appropriation. That's my middle name. When I wake up in the morning, first thing I do is I try to culturally appropriate whatever's around me. So I love this thing. Now, in the interview, it's interesting with the actress. She expresses some regret, essentially portraying, the Chinese as like the villains in this. Of course, this is based on the Fu Manchu. I believe they were novels, right? Sax Rohmer. She expresses some regret, which I can say is understandable. Okay, she's not some whiny Asian American. She's from China, right? So, but I would argue that, hey man, I grew up watching kung fu movies where Whitey, unless it was when Taekwondo Strikes or Marco Polo, Richard Harrison, usually Whitey was a punching bag, and a villain. So you're gonna be portrayed differently in whatever culture you're making films in. So that's all. But regardless. Also, he mentions how eccentric Christopher Lee was. He would sing opera all the time during lunch breaks. Please, some peace. Funny. And also, respectfully, she never says, oh, how do you feel? I mean, the guy doesn't ask her, but she doesn't mention how she felt about Christopher Lee portraying a man of another race. So, although he's Manchu, right? So he's technically not Chinese. Right? Oh, well. David Hemmings, remember him? Anyway. But a nice, interesting article. Beautiful woman. What is this? The Virgin Soldiers. That looks cool. Anyway. Going through the Babadook. What an overrated film, okay? I mean, let's be honest. It's because it's a woman did it. That's the big deal, right? But the thing that... The one scene with the creature in its true form on this hanging from the ceiling, that was pretty cool. That was a pretty chilling scene. That was like, oh, hell no. But they kept mentioning this was a film that was going to have like German expressionism, like silent film feel to it. And they keep mentioning that. And even in this, I never got that. From someone who's a silent film aficionado. So, hey, whatever. Let's get to the real thing here, man. All right, so we got here The Werewolf of Madrid. Yeah. Paul Naschy, right? Real name, Jacinto Molina, right? Also a noted power lifter, man. He was doing that into his 70s. This video of him as in his 70s, like putting up some pretty decent weight. So, and we got John Llewellyn. Let's see, serves a beginner's guide. A beginner's guide. Huh? Well, let's see what your list is. You know how that goes. What I always liked about Paul Naschy, when I met him, he was a really cool guy. You could tell that he was a fan. It wasn't like he was I'm an actor and I fell into these roles. He wanted to write scripts. And when they got funding to make the films, the first film that with this character, Valdemar Daninsky, he ended up having to play it himself. So he's a creative guy to begin with. So a very multifaceted man. And I say a great actor. Okay, because he does what you're supposed to do. He plays different roles. He plays tragic heroes. He plays like literal evil, like supernatural, horrific people. He'll even play, like uh, characters who are like side characters or supporting characters who are red herrings or whatever. But you know, I like also they bring up the fact, right? Some nice points this guy brought up. He was the only international horror superstar to achieve this status without needing British or American movies to get him there. That's right. Uh, Also, with the evil Franco, right? The dictatorship. Oh, how dare you not let communists take over your country? I had always bring up the censorship. Well, like, you could shoot nude scenes; those were for export. In Spain, you couldn't have nudity. Okay, fair. The other thing I forgot about was also the films could not take place in Spain, like with the creatures. That's why a lot of the films take place elsewhere, but they're all shot in Madrid. Okay, there's a real atmosphere in the Naschy films. Okay, and not just the bloody kind of vicious films where the humans are usually more evil than the monsters. Some of the most horrific acts are done by like bandits or like mobs of people or scientists or even women. Right? Um, it's the atmosphere you have with the old stone, like things that are centuries old. You get a real atmosphere here with them. Anyway, so let's go through the list real quick. Of course, werewolf versus vampire woman. Right, this is like they always say. This is the film where, I mean, he did probably 3 or 4 Daninsky films before this, but this is the one that was really popular, and this is the one where I guess things started to gel. Right? And I agree. The reluctant hero, the reluctant, the anti-hero who doesn't want to hurt anybody, right? He's sort of turns his back on the world and wants to just live in his like, estate. But the world intrudes. Okay, hot, beautiful women. Of course, the monsters. He always ends up fighting another monster. So, and not like he's not a goody two shoes hero. It's just the way the things come together. Now, listen, I like Frankenstein. The first one, Frankenstein's Bloody Terror. Right, Marco was it? Marco the Wolfman. I like the early stuff. I mean, Assignment Terror, Fury of the Wolfman, which he hates. I love that movie. They always show those 2 movies in particular on TV, right? A lot. But yeah, I can honestly say, yeah, this is gonna be the first one. Number 2, the opposite, where he plays this horrible satanic murderer. He's Gil de Reyes. Right? If you remember when I was going over the Heisman's La Paz, this is basically this guy being revived along with Helga Line. Always liked her. Right? Usually plays a villain or a woman, and she usually always doesn't end well. So she's kind of sexy, but horror rises from the two. What a film! Like the worst bastards in this movie, not even him. It's those bandit guys, right? But he gets done, right? Very atmospheric. I agree. Of course, he plays this horrible villain. Because now this was unexpected. Vengeance of the Mummy. I love this movie. Usually, this movie's not mentioned in a good light, but I love this film. Once again, he does. He changes things in the conventions, right? Where instead of like this poor bastard buried alive because he wanted to revive his beloved, he's an evil pharaoh who like does human sacrifices and is overthrown and buried alive. And also he plays a dual role. He plays in the modern era. He plays like the Egyptian guy who's like his flunky assistant. Very interesting. The shot in London. He says there's a scene where you can see cars on London Bridge. Maybe I don't remember that. I will have to check it again. I have the DVD of this. But for early in '70s London, they kind of really capture a Victorian feel the way they shot it. And I liked the scene too, where he's like, even like he says, as an Egyptian, why do I have to go to a museum in London to see the history of my people? So now yeah, Count Dracula's great love. Now this is great too. Also, he got criticism, right? How an actor who is short and stocky, right, or muscular, like a little gorilla, like me, to play Count Dracula. Well, he plays him against type. Once again, he plays him in a tragic manner, very similar to a film in the next vid I'm going to show. Another classic tragic vampire tale. But yeah, this movie was crazy, dude. There's 4 Euro horror actresses in this. including the one he loves. You know, he loves so much that he doesn't want to bite her. It's interesting. So there's even a scene in the film where one of the actors goes, "Oh, what do you think of the count? Well, I prefer my men taller. You know, well, don't worry, he bites her, and they all become his slaves." Oh, uh, okay. I remember seeing this on the home video as House of Psychotic Women. Yeah, this is one of the Spanish giallos, right? Everyone forgets they also made their own giallos. Okay? You know, mysterious films with like, you know, they're mysteries, but they're like gory slasher films. Who is the killer, right? And once again, he does what you're supposed to do. You know, he plays a hero. He plays a horrible villain. In this, he plays like a red herring, like, you know, loser character. Okay? Yeah, I haven't seen. I have only seen the cut version on VHS. I would maybe like to. I think with my Blu-ray player now, I need to get some of these Naschy stuff on Blu-ray. I have a lot on DVD, but there's still a lot I haven't had. Now this was cool, man. The people who own the dog. I went over this film. This is one of the nastiest, bleakest, kind of post-apocalyptic type films in it. The ending of this makes the ending of Night of the Living Dead look like the Wizard of Oz, man. And Naschy's in this. He plays a real scumbag, like rich playboy guy who tries to sell everybody out whenever he can to save his own skin. Really, really great film. Inquisition, of course, this is sort of like his version of, you know, the Mark of the Devil, the Devils, you know, the Inquisition. I saw this cut. I need to see it again. Very historical. And another one here. This is supposed to be one of his favorite films. I never saw this. It's only in Spanish, but I know it's on YouTube. Where it's almost like a historical like comedy. He plays the devil and decides to come to Earth, you know, and then he goes through a bunch of adventures. And it doesn't end well. You know? And the theme in a lot of the films, obviously, I think Mr. Naschy was a very sensitive man, okay? And there's a lot of backstabbing in the film world, and there's a lot of the way he was treated, particularly by critics. He didn't forget that. And in the film, the devil at the end is like brutally tortured and basically talks to God saying, like, you know, you gave your only son, you know, for these, you know, for these people, these scum, you know. I haven't seen this movie. I gotta see this. So this is when they're going into the eight. This is '88 already. So, How the Devil, and this is just real quick. I never saw this. Man Who Saw Frankenstein Cry. They actually, this is a year after he passed away. He had somewhat of a resurgence in Spain. When you had like the early 2000s, they made a lot of Spanish horror films, a lot of French horror films, and he was in a lot of it. It was actually great. Was The Man Who Saw Frankenstein Cry. This is a reference to when he was like a bit actor, like a background actor in an episode of I Spy. And Boris Karloff was in an episode, was shot in Spain, obviously. And he remembers seeing, I guess Boris Karloff was already dying at that point, but he was working his ass off. And I guess he caught him like crying or something like that, you know, in a moment of vulnerability. It's understandable. And it always touched him. So I gotta see this. I gotta see this. And I think we should do one more of it. I know these are not very popular, but I don't care, man. I love going over this.